Hey guys, it's Josh, and welcome back to the Not So Bad Bachelor Pad, your favorite podcast for learning how to balance between being a functional adult and a raging dumpster fire. Some days, heavy on the dumpster fire. You already know what time it is. I am back with an amazing guest for you because I know that the only thing better than hearing my voice is to hear me with a guest. So today, I want you to show some love to our amazing guest, love coach extraordinaire. And one of the biggest things that we've been talking about since day one is bridging the gap between understanding and pleasure between men and women. So I'm doing my part. And so I feel like I would be doing you guys injustice if I did not bring on another coach who's not only has a different perspective as far as gender and lifestyle, but also just experience. We are in different parts of the country, different eras of dating. Let's be honest, the dating scape has changed drastically in the last 2, 3 years, or even before that, when dating apps really became prevalent. So, welcome to the show. I always like to start out with letting you just introduce yourself and telling us a little bit about you.
Thank you. And yes, thank you for having me. I'm Daniella Astor. I also am a love coach. I'm a love coach for women who are in their early early 40s, late 30s, early 40s and beyond. And I will first start out by saying it's tough out there for ladies. It's tough out there for men. It's tough out there for everyone. And I really do think by the end of our conversation, if you get nothing else, that the things that are difficult are not so different. We are all having the same, very similar issues, very similar difficulties. And I think we sort of, you know, create some sort of distance like, oh, well, that's a woman problem, that's a man problem. But actually, we'll see that it's a heart problem, it's a love problem, but we'll get there. But yes, thank you for saying, look, there's that other half. And we're all here together.
Listen, I was like, two halves always make a whole and they solve a mystery. So, you can't get to the bottom of anything without both perspectives. And like you said, it's hard for everybody out here. I don't want it to make it seem like men have it harder than women or vice versa, because I was like, they're just different struggles. One of the most common questions I get is, you're a love coach, you're a dating guy. Like, there has to be a story behind that. What inspired you to first get started? So I'm going to extend that question to you.
Yeah,
What got
thank
you
you.
into the space?
Like, right? Like, what? That's the obvious question. Like, you're a love coach or a dating coach? Like, what's with you? So here's the deal. I don't think I'm a typical, or I never thought that I would be a dating coach, love coach, uh, representative for all women of all womankind. Not that at all. Quite frankly, I was always the person who I grew up where I was focused on my studies, focused on my education, focused on being smart because that's what I was told was the most important. Smart, successful, and having like a place in the world in terms of making money, having a career, all that kind of stuff. And that I think was a typical, if you're going to talk gender, that was a typical like male era, male like idea. But my mother is a feminist, and it was sort of like, I work too hard for you not to do this. You can be anything you want to be as long as it's a doctor, lawyer, engineer. So that was my understanding
Right.
of what my prepackaged goals would be. And so I focused all of my time, effort, and money on my education, on my career paths, plural. And on the side, almost like I treated it so lightly, like it was no big deal. Like I didn't put any intelligence or focus on dating until I got out of college. And when I did, I still didn't put much importance on it. I just didn't put much value on it. It just came very easily for me because I treated it so lightly. It was like, oh, that'll be for later. That'll be for
Right.
something after. And only in that process of treating it so lightly and not making it such a huge deal did I realize that other women, mostly women who I looked up to as so intelligent, so successful, all the things that I was striving to be, were coming to me for advice, for some sort of understanding of their own love lives. And to me, it was like, but you're so intelligent. Don't you know this? And I realized there's this distinct lack of education. I joke. I'm like, my God, these smart women are behaving in such a stupid way. But the truth is, they're not stupid, and they're not even behaving stupidly. They're just uneducated about love, about relationships, on how to interact with people, and really all relationships, quite frankly. But when it comes to dating, you probably have experienced this too. When when somebody would tell me the way they behaved, they were like, okay, so um, here's an example. This person didn't treat me properly. They picked me up late. They weren't very kind. They didn't respond in a timely manner, and I get a really like nervous feeling in my stomach every time I, get a text from them. So I'll definitely see them for the next date. And I'm like, what? Like
Right.
1 plus 1 plus 1 equals what? Like it doesn't make any sense. And so it was almost like nonsensical. So in that period of time when I was treating it very lightly, dating and relating to people and enjoying that whole process, I realized that there is value to this. And then somewhere along the line for myself and for my clients as well, I realized everything that I know, one has value, two is working, and three, I need to figure out how to do this in order to find my partner who I was ready to find. So there was a sort of a two-step process. The first step was dating because it's fun. And the second was dating because I want to find a partner. And those really were um, two different mindsets that I
I
began.
can I can see that, and that's something I feel like a lot of people do start to understand as they mature into their more quote unquote adult selves, adult lives, is that dating can be fun. And when we're younger, that's why we do it, because we like the chase, we like the back and forth, the banter. But at some point, a switch flips in our heads, and we're like, maybe I should get more serious about this. There are things that I want in life that require me to have a partner.
Yeah,
So, but as you were saying, 1 plus 1 plus 1 doesn't, I call it new math. Okay. Cause I was like, it's not the math I was taught, because when a bad behavior plus bad behavior never received a reward when I was growing up.
right.
Uh, so I was like, this must be some new math. I wasn't taught that.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely it's baffling to me too. It makes no sense. And yet, I think we're all guilty of doing things that in hindsight we look back and like, what was I even thinking? What was I doing? And there are a million reasons for that. And we can go into like the depths of our subconscious. And of course that's part of it. But ultimately, I think that whether you're dating for fun, and for me, fun means finding out about yourself and really centering yourself into that whole process, and then dating for a partner, which is still you're at the center, but you want something different.
Right.
Rise above all that, you have to remember that you have some sense of self-confidence and self-value where you're like, I'm not going to do with that anymore. Like that just doesn't even, it doesn't even, you know, work into your own understanding of who you are that you would even accept that, you know?
Exactly. I feel like, and maybe you might agree with this as a fellow coach, I spend a lot of time with some of my clients discussing boundaries and agreements. But one thing that I sometimes forget is a step before that, our standards. We have to have a standard for ourselves that we are looking for, and that we are displaying to other people. Because when we don't have a standard or a rubric to look for a partner, you'll let any and everything in, which is why you end up in some of these new math equations.
Yes. I love that you're saying this new math equation because pretty much from the outside perspective, it looks like it doesn't, the math ain't math and it does not make sense.
Right.
But the reality is that for the person who's in it, it makes perfect sense. And that's the thing where you're just like, what's the root of this? And it is, it's your standards. And I think the way I think of it is it's your identity. And we all tolerate whatever we think is normal, whatever we think is acceptable. But I think everybody, even the people that we're sort of joking about, but we also probably are coaching, even they have some standard of what is and is not acceptable. And
Right.
how do you change that? How do you expand that? How do you bring that to a place where it actually aligns with what they want, and what makes sense for them? And that is really like that's like the deep coaching work where you're like, okay, who are you really? What do you really believe about yourself? And yes, you can get into all the past stuff, but also it's like just creating a new identity for yourself of like what feels right, what feels natural, not normal, because normal is, basically complaining about dates and, complaining, taking the apps off your phone and on the phone back. I mean, that's normal. Normal is complaining and normal is seeing everybody with a horrible dating experience. Great. But that doesn't have to be your normal. It could be natural
Right.
for you to say, you know what, actually, I'm kind of having a good time. I don't need to gossip with my friends about how crappy this boyfriend was. I can just say, I had a nice time. moving on.
Exactly. That's one thing I feel like guys are really bad at. They won't necessarily dog their dates, but they I feel like they do downplay them like they're nothing. And I was like, no, let's actually go back and sit in this moment. I was like, was it a bad date, or did you just match with somebody who wasn't right? Because there's a whole, I don't know if you've seen it, but right now in the dating world, there are these lists of acceptable places to take women on a first date or not to take women.
Yeah,
And but I could remember not too long ago, and it's still said that men aren't, they don't put any thought into dates, or they don't really care, they just do whatever. If I try to put thought and intention to something, but it's something somewhere that you don't think is acceptable, then why would they continue to keep pouring their creativity or their time
totally.
into something when they're just going to be rejected or made fun of about it?
Absolutely. And that's a logical response. Let me share with you an experience I had with my husband on our first date. So we met. It was a, miracle of miracles. There was no online dating in the way that we met. It was a mutual friend connected us, didn't know me very well, knew him very well, and just wanted him to be happy and thought I was an interesting person. And so she like was so thrilled that she connected with him, she connected with me and says, "You guys have to go out." And so my husband at the time had been dating for, I would say, a decade back and forth, experiencing exactly what you're talking about, where he's a good dude. Obviously I love him, so I respect him, and I think he's a good human being. But he is, and he was trying to do right, but also like, there's a balance of feeling insecure, and like if somebody keeps on rejecting you over and over again, it take it to heart. Anyway, all that was going on in the background. I met him for a date, and it was wonderful. It was great. He emailed me before the date saying, "Hey, our mutual friend thinks that we would connect. Here are some places that I'd like to go. Let me know what you think." There was no text involved. There was no like, "Hey, baby, how you doing?" There was no false intimacy, and it was actually quite like professional in a way. It was very clean, but it's
Right.
appropriate because this is a freaking stranger. It's a stranger, and so I was like, okay. Did I have expectations? Not really. I was excited because this third party thought it was a great idea, but
Hmm.
what I didn't know anything about him either. So we go on the date, and it's all the things that normal human people talk about. We talked about our work, we talked about our past lives, we talked about our lives, our interests. There was sexual chemistry. It was so natural and so normal and so fun. It became like a really fun experience. After the date, I reported back to one of my friends who was single, and she wanted to reinterpret my date as a failure, as saying, I can't believe he said that. I can't believe he even considered letting you pay for something, which he actually paid. It wasn't, that I don't have any rules on that way or another. But
Right.
her thought was, if he let you consider that you would pay, she basically almost got me thinking that this person is 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 X. Wrong. Moving along.
Right.
Like you deserve something better. You deserve someone who's going to spend more money on you. Like all the things. And I almost believed her, and I got really sad hearing, when you get so excited about something and you hear the
When
response.
somebody's not as supportive, or they, yeah.
Absolutely. And we all have experienced that, whether it be relationships or anything else, like big goals, just any joy. If someone's just want, want. So I got the want. And I almost took her seriously. I almost took it to heart. But I didn't. I said, "You know what? I don't think that's right. My intuition says this is a great person and we make sense together. I don't know where it's going, but I do know that I trust the human being that he is, that if we were to have a relationship and it were to end, it wouldn't be painful unnecessarily. I wouldn't get the rug pulled out from underneath me. And this is a person that I can trust, relationship or not." That's all I knew. And I went back on the date, and I actually asked him. I said, that thing where you said this, or that, and can you clarify? And he said, "Oh, well, yeah, I just figured this, that, and the other." And it was so neutral and so normal. And I realized I have to listen to my instinct. And had I gone on that date even 1 year prior, I would have dismissed him. I would have dismissed him.
We always say there's always a season, and you hopefully find yourself in the right place in the right season so that you are at a tree that's bearing fruit. So it's just finding that right window where you are ready for your potential person.
Yeah.
And you never know who that is. I was literally just talking to a guest about this. I was like, you never know how important somebody's going to be to your life until you actually get to meet them. Because I was like, you can interact with people or you see people in passing and you don't think much of them. But then once you actually sit down and have that first conversation, or you see their values, what they're actually about, their characteristics, you'd be like, you know what, this is somebody I could see as a lifelong friend, or this is somebody I could be with for the rest of my life.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm glad that you were able to, because I'm not going to say it's a new thing. Dating is never just one on one. Okay, you don't just date a person; you date their entire circle, so to speak.
Yeah.
Because I was like, you know, they're going to talk, both men and women. We're going to talk to our friends about the date. We'll probably show them a picture that we like had or like about them. Then you're going to eventually meet friends and family. And then they're going to be like, well, this is how I perceive the person. And then this is what you should do. And so dating is never going to be one on one. I don't ever think. So,
Right, especially in the beginning. I do think you're right.
oh,
Before
yeah.
the relationship becomes something that's, like its own unit, its own thing.
And then it's funny, like, so your friend who was like, I don't know, are you guys still friends?
No.
Oh, I was gonna be like, has her opinion changed on the relationship?
I'm not sure. But I will say this one thing. You're absolutely right that there's a season for everything, and that is what we perceive, and that's what's real. But the secret for me is that 2 months before our mutual friend slash connection connected us, I had a just like a moment of knowing. It wasn't even like I hope I meet my person, a moment of knowing exactly who he will be because I was thinking about what I wanted, what was important to me, and what was interesting and how I wanted to live my life. And I was just really like pouring myself into this idea of being with somebody. What do I want in a partner? And like just giving myself the free rein to kind of like go crazy since I didn't know nobody was on my radar at the point. So I was like, it's just like a open canvas, right? I could just create
Right.
what I want. But I had this, it was like so quick, so easy, so no big deal. But it was a knowing of like, oh, Daniela, guess what? The next person you're going to date seriously will be your husband. And I knew. And guess what? It was such a relief. It was like the most, it was when I say it was a knowing, it was like I didn't pine, I relaxed, I can just enjoy myself. I didn't know when, I didn't know how. All I knew was you should probably start dating, Daniela. It's time. And I did.
And that's beautiful.
So 2 months later, boom, boom. How do you know? So when you say, when you sit down, you actually meet somebody and get to know them, and you're like, oh, this is a person who I could really enjoy. This is a person who could be really important to me. I love who they are. You have to know how to recognize that. If you
And
don't, you'll miss it.
you're gonna miss it. I agree. And one thing that in your story I can see that you did, and it's something that I talk about all the time on the show or with my clients, is we have to stop putting so much pressure or so many constraints on our dates. You know, like even though you had the intention of next person I'm going to date is going to be my husband, you went on this date open minded just to get to know the person. You didn't say, no matter what, I'm going to marry this man. He's not doing X, Y, and Z. You took out expectation. You you weren't in a rush to label things. You just were like, he's him, I'm me. We're actually just naturally gravitating and fitting together. We're becoming in sync. And then that led to a successful relationship, which I believe is the best thing to do. Because when you are so hyper focused, I believe that you don't take the time to appreciate who the person is that you're getting to know and potentially calling your partner. You're stressing them out because they're afraid to make one mistake because to you, like, well, if you're not everything that I want in a person, then you have to go. I was like, no one person is everything that you want. And there are things that you don't even know that you want yet, that after time you start to realize, like, wow, I didn't know that I was looking for this, but now that I found it in you, it's massive.
Yeah. I agree fully on everything, by the way, but I think like love and dating is one of those things where people take it so seriously because, you know, you can't ignore the fact that it's important to have a partner if that's like socially normal around your in your friend group. It's important to be, you know, take someone to the plus one party of your corporation. Who knows? Like the world will tell you what's important and you'll believe it, right? And there's another part of it that's like, actually, it's important to me because it's who I am, and I actually want that also. It aligns with that message. But if you hold on to it so tightly and you become obsessed with the person in front of you, saying it has to be this person, this is the guy, it has to be, I'm going to make it work. You basically you choke it out of it to death, you
Yeah.
know. Versus, I want the experience of having a great relationship where I feel happy. What a concept. Then, you know, my experience was I knew that, oh, I'm going to get married soon. So then I could, like, I was skipping along and you know what I did? I started to naturally miss my life as a single person. Like I was so, and that I didn't try to do that. I
Right.
was like, oh my God, there's an end to this, huh? This is not going to be forever. Interesting.
Which is a good and bad thing. I was like, no one thing is, nothing lasts forever. So they say whether you end up deciding that you want to remain unpartnered for your life or you want a partner, I believe your viewpoint on what a successful life is or what being happy is, it changes. And there are always going to be things you miss, even about like for once you become an adult. There are things you miss about childhood.
Totally.
Once you move away from home, there are things you miss that drove you crazy about your parents that you probably miss to this day. So I just believe that nostalgia, so to speak, that what you are talking about is just a normal part of life.
Yeah. I think so too. And I think, you know, the nostalgia doesn't mean that it's gone forever. It just means that you understand that you're in a new place.
Right.
And,
Yes.
you know, it's sort of like a person could be very cynical and say, but you weren't in a new place. Or if I say to my client, like, just imagine yourself, you know, with your person, and they're like, but there is no person. Like, of course. But that's
Mm.
the same thing as obsessing over the person in front of you on the date. Be like, you have to be the person, you're the guy, you're the woman, you know, just relax a little bit. And what would happen if, God forbid, you actually, I don't know, thought, well, I don't know, maybe it could work. Maybe it's not,
Exactly.
maybe it's the next person or three people down the road, but three people down the road, that's going to be a nice wedding anyway, you know?
Yeah. I was like, a happily ever after is a happily ever after, no matter how quick you get there.
Yes. And at that time, you all know that you'll be, you know, up there saying your vows, being like, you know, it happened so perfectly.
Yeah.
Perfect timing.
I was like, I'd almost given up, but I was like, well, I mean, you almost gave up like two relationships ago too.
Right.
Here we are.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely said to myself many a time, look, Daniela, your window of being like a young bride right out of college, you know, with your whole life ahead of you and doing life together, that window's closed. It's done. It's over. So where are we now? Like how wonderful, you know, you don't have to hold on to old stories that aren't even yours.
That's one thing that I feel like I'm so back and forth. So I always like to use the analogy of a seesaw
Hmm.
on the show. And I believe where the Hollywood has failed us is they've loaded us so down with these notions of what is a happy or successful relationship. Like you have to be young and bustling and you'll just stumble into love. It'll be picture perfect, cookie cutter, nothing will go wrong. Or if
Hmm.
it does, it'll be comical.
Hmm.
You won't really have to try too hard. Uh, and that's what a relationship is. That's what's going to happen for you. And I was like, I'm more on the other side where I like bumps and bruises. Okay. I was like, love is a roller coaster. So is life. So it comes with hills, valleys, and it's going to shake you left to right. And in that time, you're really going to find yourself and
Hmm.
you're going to find the person that you're meant to be with.
Yeah.
So I think as more people, what I try to do is break them free from this rom com romance that they're so, hooked into, hypnotized into,
Yeah.
and just be like, hey, love is a mad lib. Go ahead, just throw a bunch of random adjectives and verbs at it, and you'll find a story that's just as exciting.
I love that. And I totally agree. I think that, you know, our like idea of like rom-coms, Hollywood channel or Hollywood Hallmark Channel and
Yeah,
Hollywood, well, like this whole thing is just completely false. It's so false. It's so one note. It's so not human. It's not like a full experience. But more than that, you just when you accept that it's about you and how much you're happy with yourself and loving yourself and you want to share it, then it gets really easy. You know, you don't have to worry like, oh God, you know, is this the right person? Is it exactly the way it has to be? No, there's no way it has to be. I love a bump and bruise. That's how we expand in all areas of our life, you know? Like if it was easy, like you would ignore it. And that's
exactly.
that too, by the way. I've read somewhere that um a woman went to her like coach or mentor and said, you know, I can't believe my husband left me. And when she was sort of recalling the way she thought about her husband, she actually forgot that she was married. Like she didn't give him a second thought. And so like the coach, mentor person was like, but you're the one who did that, you know. You
Right,
basically decided that you don't have a husband. Like in your mind, you didn't have him. So of course he's gonna leave. He's gonna disappear. Why
right.
would you be there? Like
I love this conversation because it's opening my eyes up to, like I said, just how subtle differences, how we perceive things.
Mhm,
One thing for me that I think I call it boy math is for guys, especially, we get a lot of bruises, we get a lot of scars. And sure, we think they're going to be attractive to our partner, but they also hold memories.
mhm,
So the reason I always have such physical metaphors, I believe, is that each bruise, each cut, each scar that we have, each wound on our heart is a memory that we can learn from and take down the road. That way, when we finally are in something happy and healthy, that we can look back onto and we can be like, I can't believe I made it from here, or
yeah,
that I was so caught up and so attached to this notion that I almost missed my blessing,
yeah.
my person. Is there any type of metaphor or ideology that like differentiates how you see or how you've seen relationships and love play out?
Well, first I will say yes, and I have to say that I love what you just said because it's really like the law of relativity. Like everything you it is so easy. And this happens for my clients, this happens for women, this happens for men. When you get the bumps, when you get the bruises, when you get your heart broken, or you feel unsafe, or you feel like you're in a bad situation where you gave too much, or you see your family behave in a certain way, whatever the thing is, most people, upon first instinct, will not look at it as a reference point of look how far I've come for later. Most people will not say, "Ooh, I should take this as a little like before picture, knowing for
Mm-hmm.
well it'll happen after." No, most people will say, "That's what life is. That feels terrible. I don't ever want to experience that again. So I'm just gonna like shut it down,
Get it
close,
down.
bubble wrap. That's it. But I'll pop my little head out and show you my manicured nails and my cute lipstick and my really interesting banter, and that'll be enough. That'll be more than enough. But I don't actually want to connect from my heart or any other part, you know? So I find the not literal, but the unraveling of that bubble wrap, removing that armor sometimes is the most challenging part. It's definitely the first part that's required, and you don't do that with a partner, contrary to what I think, well, some other people would say. I think dating, love, relationships, marriage, parenthood, it's all about your relationship with yourself. Yes, that person is the most important person in your life. That's the relationship you're experiencing. But if you don't understand that you are inherently safe, physically, obviously, but like you're safe to actually be small, to be what you consider weak, to be what you consider stupid, to be what you consider a mess, a failure. All these like insecurities that I know for me and the women that I work with, that was not acceptable. It was like, oh, you have a weakness? Let's just shut that down, lock it up, and make sure it doesn't exist. So the most important thing, the through line is that you're the center. You have it's all you. You have all the power. And that doesn't mean that you should feel bad about it and say, "Oh God, what have I done?" It's, it's like Spider-Man. It's power responsibility. Like
Right.
it's all you. And I think I can say that over and over again. And there's a moment, could be a week, it could be a month, it could be years down the road where like the penny drops and it's like, I've been doing this. And if you allow yourself to see that, it's not as horrible as you imagine it would be. There might be a moment of like, I can't believe I did this. I can't believe I chose to be with these people over and over again because you didn't consciously. That would be ridiculous.
Right.
That once you realize I've been doing this, I don't have to do this anymore for no other reason. I don't have to earn my way out of it. I don't have to lose 5 pounds. I don't have to earn more money. I don't have to become, like CEO of the universe. I can just say, we're done with that. People treat me well. So, I mean, the thing is that I don't know if this is it sounds self-centered, but it's really centering yourself in your relationships, and this is universal. I don't think that this is a new idea for anything, but it's really important for the women that I work with because they are so accustomed to being good at things, being right, being being like an example of everything that's good in this world, that they don't allow themselves the possibility to be a hot mess, be a dumpster fire, be a failure.
I was
You
like, it's the place to be. No, listen. Here's why I love being a dumpster fire. People can't take their eyes off of you. They'll watch you all the way until their car passes you, and they'll still look back. And I was like, let's just burn beautifully. That's it. Be captivating, burn brightly in this moment,
Mhm.
because it's yours.
It's so true. And as we're talking, it's becoming very clear to me, I don't know if it is for you, that a lot of the issues that I deal with the women that I work with who are, again, it's a particular age group, a particular, like group of women, they're basically dealing with the problems of being in a woman's body, but the messaging of being a man.
And like I said, people don't realize this. There's more overlap than there are differences
Yes.
when it comes to these issues or everybody's battle with self love and security. I remember vividly when I learned this lesson. I believe I was 21. I was 21. I was with a friend who had just gone through a breakup who lived down the hall. And we were sharing a pint of ice cream from UDF. It's like a local, like little gas station that sells ice cream. And she was like boo-hooing and crying about this guy. And I was I was pining for this person who I never made a play on.
Mm.
I was like, this is going to be my forever person, but yet I won't talk to her or tell her. Desperation equals delusion. Leads to delusion is what I used to say. But in that moment, I was like, you know what? I was like, you're a beautiful, intelligent woman who has a lot going for you. You have an amazing like co-op that she was in. I mean, I was doing well. I had my own place. I was like, we're both great people who have our own, and we're like, successful in a sense. And so I was like, you know what we need to start doing? We just need to live life knowing that we're more than enough. Because I was like, I don't deserve the bare minimum. I was like, I know my worth, and if I stay in this depressive state, I'm only going to attract people who see me as low value.
Yes.
And same goes for you, whether you're trying to attract a man or I'm trying to attract a woman or vice versa, whatever you're into. Nobody wants a low resonance, sorry for themselves little puppy.
Hmm.
And once I realized that, I was like, I am enough. Like, there are a lot of amazing things about Josh. It was a whole new world out there. I literally heard Aladdin and Princess Jasmine on the carpet, like above my head, like singing a whole new world. Uh,
Love it. Love it.
um, because I changed my outlook. And I feel like that's where there's this game that happens in dating that I'm tired of, and I try to steer people away from, whether they're clients or not. I was like, we don't have to play the love game. I was like, just be open and honest about your intention or what you're looking for, because more times than not, more people are probably feeling the same way.
Always. Yes. Yes, and I love that you would like, I imagine you, like was it a gas station you said? It was like you were you actually sitting at the gas station, like, say anything,
No, so
you, like, sitting on your couch, eating from the gas station?
we
I
were,
can't.
yeah. So the gas station was like our backyard. So we like literally just went downstairs. And it's like we this so this is a little tangent. So after a night out, we had the same ritual.
Mhm.
We would have to pass this gas station place to get home. So we would go in at like 2 or 3 in the morning. We would get our milkshakes or pint of ice cream and a Gatorade, and we would go up and just like detox on the night. Maybe make some tater tots or pizza rolls, and just I don't know, just relax. That was our unwinding situation. So it's the same thing here. We were just on the couch with our little ice cream, with our milkshakes, just wallowing, and we're like, why are we doing this?
Isn't that that's exactly how it is. I love that because there you were, wallowing, like, doing all the things that feel good because it felt good to wallow and eat your ice cream because it feels good, and what you said, you're like, "Wait a minute, I know my worth. Full stop, period." But look at the tense. I know my worth. You know what that is signifies? You were behaving in a way that you didn't, but now you do. And that means present tense. You know it. You know, it wasn't like I didn't know it before. I bet you knew it before too, but you just forgot. You were behaving in a way that was absolutely insane. And what I believe is that if you know something, when something hits you that strong, you know it. It's always been there. You know who you are, and we all know who we are. And that gets so flooded with the bullshit of everybody else's perspective on themselves, really.
Right.
It gets really clouded. It gets really foggy. You know, we don't, so we behave in ways that we think are normal, but we all know that our parents screwed us up or our friends and family or the media, all that. You can blame it all on them, but it's like actually underneath that, and
Listen,
you,
I was like, I'm in the driver's seat. We have to have some form of accountability. I heard this the other day, and it really sat with me. And you've mentioned it a little today, but it's something I feel like we still aren't aware of.
mm,
So this person said that was like, yeah, our parents messed us up, and we're like, I'm not going to be that parent, or I'm not going to turn into my mom and dad. So you do things differently, thinking that you're going to be a different parent, you'd be a different person. And he was like, no, that's wrong. He was like, we aren't doing something that we think is different or better for ourselves or our children. We're giving them the life that our 5 year old, our younger self wish that we had,
mhm.
not
Yeah,
the life that they wish they had to be better.
yeah,
And so we need to take the time as to hug that little kid that we were, but to be present and aware of what we need or our loved ones, our circle needs now, so
mm,
that we can actually be different. And I was like, wow. I was like, that was pretty heavy. I was like, you're right. I was
yeah,
like, anything I do, I say, I was like, I'm not gonna become my dad. I'm not gonna become my mom. I don't like this aspect, because I remember how that made me feel in that moment.
yeah.
But we're not that same person.
No,
So it's like, what do I need right now? Not what would have made me feel better. What do I need right now?
now that's the,
And,
yeah.
and
And
trying
I
to get
think
people to stay here in this present
it
is
is
hard sometimes.
so yeah, I mean, it's because the present feels like it's oftentimes talked about like this little like sliver of time that's like a space holder between past and future. Like the past that feels so heavy and intense that we need to like work through and, you know, basically go to another level of like PhD just to figure out what was wrong with us. And then the future of like, oh my God, the anxiety of everything I need to do in order to be worthy. Like it isn't. And I think, you know, I just want to highlight what you're saying and what this other person was saying too, which is when you say, I'm not going to do that, I see what my parents said, I'm not going to do that, you're still trapped. You're still completely trapped in that old version because you're just, you're basically living in that world and reacting to that. Versus, as you're saying, what's the story now?
Yes.
What do I know for sure? And how do I proceed from there? Because then you can go back and look at what happened in the past and just say to yourself, I don't live there anymore. I don't have to think that way anymore,
Right.
you know, and a whole new world opens up, which I think is it's very easy to say. That could be a very challenging thing to do, to unhook yourself from all of your past experiences and say, it's not going to make a big deal for me anymore. It doesn't define me anymore. And it could happen little by little. It can happen in a snap,
Right.
happen while you're eating ice cream. Who knows?
Yeah. More people, you need late night ice cream, okay? It's revolutionary.
I mean, yeah.
Doctor's orders. I'm gonna prescribe that now. No. So one thing that I think, as like I said earlier, I like to bridge the gap, and I can admit this. Me, 5 or 10 years ago, I was not as emotionally intelligent. I wasn't as introspective as I am now. And so I've noticed that I've been changing, but I'd be lying if I said as soon as I decided to make changes or start to be a more, I call it boyfriend material, oriented person, that things just clicked right away. I like I said, there's a lot of work to be done on both sides, but I feel like we're not talking, if that makes sense. I feel like women, I feel like we're both changing, both men and women, um, at different ages too. So whether you're in your 30 somethings and you've been established for a little bit, or you're going into that first bit of freedom, like you're heading into college or you're just finishing and you feel like you have your whole life ahead of you. I feel like we're starting to change mindsets there, but we're still held to the same notions as the past.
Hmm.
So the question in all of that jargon that I said is, do you believe that some women are actually ready for an emotionally intelligent and available?
Okay, short answer, of course I believe women are ready for that. And I understand the question behind the question, which is, yes, we're all in silos. Yes, it feels like there's still that, I want that, but also you're the enemy. I want that, but I don't trust you. I want that, but you're not safe. I want that, you're going to hurt me. And this goes from both sides. I want that, but somehow it's going to be more painful than it's going to work. Like, for that, I might go on a date, but we all know where that's going to go. I mean,
Right.
basically, I mean, if you think about it, you're like, well, you have to think, how's this going to end? What's the breakup going to be like? Because if the only option is you're going to break up a million times until you don't, and that's going to be once, in the best case scenario, right? So
Right.
we're all fearful. We're both fearful. We're all fearful, and we put each other on the other side, saying, "I want that. How am I going to fluff up this way? Or maybe I'll be more emotionally intelligent. Or maybe I'll be more attractive. Maybe I'll be more powerful. Maybe I'll be more vulnerable." Like,
Yeah.
it's all, and we're both doing it, and nobody knows what to do, what to be, except when someone says, "Just be yourself." It's like, um,
Who is that?
who is that?
I don't know.
Who is that? So the answer to the question is, women on this side of the world, when they're looking at the men over there, are they ready for someone who's emotionally available and vulnerable and, perhaps by society or their friends considered like, I don't know, a beta or someone who's not as, not as valuable? Of course, 1,000 freaking percent. And the reason why is because the women are not asking that question, and the man who is that doesn't think that way either. We both know that. Nobody's asking that question. It doesn't matter if every single man and every single woman in the world is thinking, I want that. That's the opposite. That's my connection. Now we have a family. Like, I need to behave in this way. You need to behave in this way. If everybody thought that way, that would be okay. If I'm a full person and I just want to love somebody and really enjoy them and enjoy our lives together, and however that looks and however that fits, it's just going to be more than the sum of our parts. If you know that, which I know you do, there's going to be somebody, and I promise you there are many who feel the same way. Like, it's so simple, but we separate things so quickly,
We
so
do. And I feel like we're always living in hindsight, being 2020, that they're like, if I would have known this 5 years ago, if I would have known this 10 years ago, maybe things would be different. Or they're like, you know what? You're really great and you're in a good space, but maybe like you're gonna thrive in your 30s, you're gonna thrive in your 40s. And I was like, I don't want to wait 20 years
Thrive.
to thrive. Or in 20 years, if I'm still living in this area or this space of it's not my time, how is that going to affect me? How much am I going to change to try to sprout earlier? See, the thing that we don't think about is us all being seeds. However, a seed doesn't rush itself. It grows at its own pace, but we're
Mhm.
always going trying to be 0 to 60 and just like grow faster, grow faster. Come on, let's break the soil. Let's get there. Let's become a bud. Let's become a tree. And we're
Yeah,
always in such a rush, but like it feels like there's just something pulling us down. And it's like we're scared to trust the work. We're scared to trust the path until
yeah,
we
the
get there.
unfolding. Yes. Absolutely. I mean, look, I remember being in my 20s and it's like everybody wanted to be on like the 30 under 30 and always a list of 30 under 30 and there's always this idea of like once you pass a certain age you're expired in one
Right.
way or another. I mean, it might not be like you're expired for marriage, but you're expired for being like a young person who's you're no longer a genius, you're no longer a
Right.
savant, you're no longer special, you're just an adult doing something, you're like, oh God, what's where's the thrill of that? In the seed is the entire like code. Let it unfold. And it's easy to say when you have what you want, to be like, oh well, yeah, like just let it unfold as it is. But also I think it's important to check in with yourself at every moment of the process, if that's how you see it, and say, would I want it to be any other way?
Right. I was like, what am I really missing?
Really, I mean,
Yeah.
really, and practically speaking, this is what I ask all my clients who are like dating, and they're like, "Oh, I hate dating." I'm like, "Well, okay, but if you were to meet your person tomorrow, like literally meet your person tomorrow, and know in some real way that this is your person, that there's a whole cascade of practical things that have to happen. You take yourself off the dating apps. Like you just are you remove yourself emotionally from that, from like basically flirting with the world in the same way you flirt with the world. I mean, that doesn't end, but you know what I mean, like you don't, without the like something could happen,
Right. Yeah.
you know and are you ready for that? And I've had so many women say, just without even question, no, I am not. There's still more not that they're enjoying, the heartbreak, not that they're enjoying like, all the drama of like trying to, about texting and people, going past their boundaries, all the bullshit that happens, but they're not ready to say, I'm done with this experience. There's still more for me here. So, like, what are you complaining about? Like, you've chosen it anyway.
Right.
So just like stand by your choice. Be like, I've chosen to be here. Here we are.
I was like, you can only hop over so many lawns before you realize the
Yeah.
grass isn't always greener.
No,
You know,
no.
this is a phenomenon that happens as long as I've been doing the show, is I come in thinking I have a plan, think I have a direction for the show, and then I start to talk to the guests, and as I've been just talking to you, Daniela, I'm just realizing I was like, I think I've only asked one question that I had originally written, and that's okay because, like I said, it's all about the journey. This is
Yeah,
where today was intended to go, but I just hope you know that this means that I'm gonna have to have you back on the show because I was like, we're in a good space right now. So everything else, I don't know. We're gonna just have to do that day two.
I cannot wait. And I totally agree. There was a point where I realized this is the way it should be. This is how it has to be. The conversation just flows. I mean, if we actually had the organization and the wherewithal to bullet point after the fact what we're actually talking about,
Mhm.
we probably realize that we hit so many huge, big and small topics. Like, and that's the fun of it, right? I mean, that's kind of like what dating's about too, or friendship or anything where you're like, I can talk about the most ridiculous, stupid, like dumb thing. And in the same breath, it's some large concept that you totally like, I'm with you. Like you're putting it down, I'm picking it up. Like of course I'm with you. Like it makes so much sense. That's the vibe. That's the thing.
It's not what's best or what's normal. It's what feels natural. And I believe we both kind of just allowed ourselves to be present in the moment, engaging into each other really picking up on what the other was saying and taking that and just continually to build and expand upon it. And I think we've created something like amazing today. I'm like, I'm grinning, I'm cheek to cheek, I'm grinning right now. I'm happy,
Me too.
um, which is something I love. I'm not saying that I this doesn't happen with a lot of my guests, but I was like, this is something special today that I think that the audience needs to hear is just like we've been telling you about your dating lives, be intentional, but don't be afraid to just let things unfold naturally.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be the biggest takeaway from today from us is
Yeah.
just trust. Okay. There's no rush to life. No matter how much you want to speed things up, you're still going to end up going at your own pace. And don't miss all the small little moments, the bumps and bruises along the way. Because what's the point in finding a partner 5 months from now, 20 years from now, and not really having any stories to to share to realize like your client, like, did I really have a husband or did I just have a roommate that I had the same last name as?
Yeah. 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 When it's the right thing, you would say I would have waited 20 more years for this.
Yeah.
Thank God I didn't have to, but if it's the right thing, I would have. And when it's the wrong thing, it's like, what am I even doing?
Am I doing? Yeah.
Like, what was the rush for nothing? For there's nothing here. There's nothing behind the curtain, you know? So yeah, I mean, I really do think that when people come together and think about relationships, they think when men and women are talking like we are like human beings, like people who have hearts who are more similar than not, and we celebrate who we are and celebrate our differences, all this stuff, you basically create the fertile soil to drop a seed of love and have it work well.
Right. Yeah.
Have it work well, because that's the fear, I think, is well, what happens if we break up? I can't. I have deals going on at the end of the year. I can't handle a breakup. I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't want to do a prenup. Like it's going to cost me thousands. Like all these crazy, I
Right.
think, all of the worst case scenarios. And it's like, well, what if it didn't fail? What if it was actually great?
I was like,
You know?
how often do we read a book from the end to the beginning? So we don't. So let's not do the same thing in our relationship.
Yeah.
Okay. If you try to guess how this book is going to end before you even open the first page, you're going to be disappointed and confused.
Totally, totally. And by the way, if you didn't tell the other main character what the script is, they're going to fail. They're not going to know their lines.
Right.
They're going to flub. Like that's gonna. And women do that all the time. They're like, okay, if he does not call by this time and say this thing, then in 2 months down the road, I will tell him that it's over. I'm like, did you tell him that that's what he has to do, or you just told me because I'm not in the relationship, you know?
I always say this: you can't be mad at somebody for displaying a behavior that you find problematic if you don't tell them that it's problematic.
My God. I thousand percent agree, and I think the word problematic is so ridiculous because it's your opinion on what you like.
Right.
Just show up and just share what you like.
I was like, what's a problem for you may just be what the other person was needing in their life. So don't stick in a situation that's not serving you because it could be what somebody else is, like one man's trash is another man's treasure. This could be somebody's treasure, but because you're afraid to let go, now you have two people. You just, you just
Yeah.
have two amazing gifts being squandered.
I'll share this last another trope, but it really moved me, and it's you can't say the wrong thing to the right person, and you can't say the right thing to the wrong person. So
Okay.
simple, like you're always the right person. So
Yeah.
just, you're finding your right person. You can't say the wrong thing. Relax already. Like
Take the pressure off. Get your foot off the gas.
yes.
Now, Daniela, because today was such a great episode, I didn't get a chance to do what we call our quickie questions. And that's usually just like a lightning round of questions to better get to understand the guest and to help people connect. So I'm just going to ask you just one question. We spent enough time talking about the past.
Hmm.
So I want to leave on a fun, lighter note that still lets us get to know you a little bit. And so, one of my favorite new questions that I'm asking people, because I'm assuming this isn't the first podcast you've been on or the first interview you've ever had. What is a question out of all the times that you've done this that nobody's asked you that you wish, I want to talk about this? Come on, just give me the opportunity. What's something that you've always just wanted to express and let go that you haven't had the space to?
Oh, wow. Okay. Give me a minute, a moment. I wish someone would ask me, what's it like when you're really in love with somebody and that person, I mean, okay, I'll take it back. I don't think that no one has ever asked this, and I don't think no one's ever spoken about this, but I wish someone asked me, what's it like when you're married to someone for X amount of years and they keep on unfolding and showing you who they are, and it's interesting and it's exciting and it's exactly what you asked for. It's exciting because you're like, wait, I asked for that. I always wanted that, and I forgot I wanted that, but here it is. That's a part of the relationship that is so it's at that point, it's so private. It's so like you're living like, the honeymoon's over. No one cares about the fact that you're engaged. You probably have a kid or two. Like things are happening in your life where life takes over. When all of that happens, what's it like when you look over at your partner, and you're like, "Oh yeah, you're exactly who I wanted, and I didn't even realize you're that." There's still more to experience. That's a special thing no one really thinks about. It's one of those things that you don't get there. As I said, you're years into it, and it's not as sexy. You know what I mean? In a way, it's wonderful. It's not as sexy. I don't lead with it because dating is sexy, sex is sexy. Like all of that is those first moments of like wow. But being in a relationship that you want to be in that actually gets better, it's so unfreaking believable for most people who are single. It's so like fantasy that the normalcy of being with someone who continues to be who you thought they were is like actually like wow to me. So I wish somebody would ask me, what's it like when it becomes so boring that it's actually amazing?
So it's funny that you say dating is sexy and sex is sexy. I'm going to leave you with this statement before we go, and then I'm going to write it down because we'll talk about it the next time I have you on. And this goes out for all you bachelors and bachelorettes out there, or even if you are partnered and you're watching, you somehow made your way to this episode. One thing that I feel like sets me apart from a lot of people is I'm in a weird boat. I think differently. I think connection is sexy. I often tell people on my first couple dates, if you're not somebody I can be bored with, we're not going to last because I know that you know what you want and I know what I want. And we're going to have these big moments. We're going to have amazing memories. We're going to have a beautiful lifetime together. But it's about what's in between those moments that will, I feel like, allow us to thrive and lead to this never ending gobstopper of new characteristics of what you thought your partner was and what they are actually becoming. That's just what I'm going to leave right there. Once again, Daniella, thank you so much for coming on today. What an amazing episode. Guys, thank you for being a part and tuning in and listening to this episode.
Yeah.
I'm going to be sure to leave all of Daniella's links and websites down below so that you can, so women, like I said, so you can get that other perspective and work with somebody who's been in your shoes and has made it to her happily ever after. And that we can just continue growing into the beautiful people that we were designed to be. I will see all you amazing singles and partner people next week for another episode of the Not So Bad Bachelor Pad. Peace.
Bye.